Alright, so now we'll have all four candidates come up to join me on stage, please, followed by an open question section. I have a few questions myself, and then it will gradually open up for anyone in the audience here to ask. At about 8:20, we'll be calling for a 10-minute break, and then we'll continue with the questioning. So if you could all join me up here. Now, each of these questions are going to be to all of you. We're just going to go down the line to give each of you an opportunity to answer the question. We'll start on the left and move right, then we'll alternate and go the other way around so it's an equal balance. So first off, to each of you, as a measure of who you are, what is your proudest experience? Let's start there.
Thank you. When you say proudest experience, do you mean in life or the university since our time?
I mean, the proudest experience you've had in your life, not achievement or accomplishment, but an experience you're proud of having. You can take a moment to think.
All right.
We'll just edit it out.
The proudest experience in my life was when I decided to be more than what I already was, when I decided to put certain behaviors and such behind me so that I can be like what my parents always worked for me to be. They always invested a lot of time into me, and they always tried to put a lot of wisdom into me, but I specifically remember the day. I was probably about 17, and I'm from Philadelphia, and so I was in Philly. I was actually on my way to school, and I remember the day that I decided to actually kind of take on like all the dreams, like aspirations that they had for me.
I think my proudest experience was in high school when I come from a very traditional Indian family, so my parents had a big influence in my life, and they came here to give their children a better life, but they weren't too accustomed to the American way of life, so to speak. So I think my proudest experience was actually standing up to them, getting involved, since it was my first time ever having a job, which I wasn't allowed to have, getting involved on campus, getting involved in sports, and just like giving back to the community without having approval to do so.
All right, I would credit my proudest experience came my freshman year of college when I had a really bad first semester, and then I had to sit down with my dad, and he said, "Look, man, like you're my first kid to go to college out of 7. Like, what are you gonna do about it?" And the next semester, I was able to bring him home a place on the dean's list, and I was able to show my little cousins that there's more to life than running around hanging out with your friends and running around getting in trouble, and even more to life than playing sports. And it was just really proud for me to be able to show my little cousins that. So that's my proudest moment.
My proudest moment was receiving my, what's it called, the final grades after my first semester here at SHIP. In high school, I wasn't very involved at all, and I didn't really try, and I didn't try because I was afraid to try and fail. And I think my freshman year at college was the first time that I actually tried, and there was a lot of things that I failed at. But the resilience that I had to keep trying, it was the first time that I had ever experienced that will to keep going, and I was very, very, very happy with my final grades, and they were in fact the lowest that I've had since I've been at SHIP in one semester, but realizing that I could do something just became the catalyst for everything I've done since then. So receiving those final grades after trying for the first time and not failing was my proudest moment.
And you're all stepping in midterm with Senate, and I do apologize for that, which may make for a stumbling block with a group of 23 extremely strong-willed, enthusiastic leaders. are meant to follow you, why should they? So quite simply, what sort of experiences do you have with the school and with Senate that may help to negate that stumbling block, which may explain why should these people, these leaders, follow you as their leader? You can take a second to think about it.
All right. I do not believe at all that there is a solution or a guidebook on how to avoid the stumbling block that's about to come, regardless of any of us sitting on this stage. Because everybody leads differently, and we have a room full of compassionate, strong leaders, but everybody's strengths are different, and I think that I have the ability to work with different leaders and how they lead. I also am a good listener, and I listen and I take action. I don't think that there's ever been a time since I've been at school where if I told you I was going to do something, that I did everything in my power to get it done. And I don't think that I stop. So we are going to make Senate cohesive, regardless of what stumbling blocks it takes. And I think that we have done, I think that's the idea, is stopping with the I, it's we. We as Senate have done a lot. And each and every person, I think the less that you take credit for what you have done, the more things can happen. When you stop worrying about who gets credit for what, more things happen. So I think that if I get this presidential position, I am still on a team of we's, a we of leadership. And that's how I would approach the situation. Does that answer your question?
Regards to your question, I mean, I understand that being one of the few up here that isn't in the student senate, because it was my first year last year, I couldn't be in it. But I feel as though now that I am here, that you guys can put all your trust in me. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that's going to tell you something and then not come through with it. I'm diligent. I work hard at every single thing I've ever had the opportunity to do in life, because I feel as though it's a blessing that I'm even here. With that said, you guys, I mean, I can be counted on. That's pretty much what I'm driving at here. You know, as a team, if we got to get something done, we're going to get it done under my leadership every single time, to the best of my ability. And like feeding off of what Abby said, I mean, there needs to be a little bit more cohesion, but that comes with just, you know, getting to know each other and like bouncing pros and cons off of each other about what things work when it comes to a group effort. And I feel as though I can hit the nail on the head when it comes to that. So, yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
In coming into Shippensburg as a freshman, I became the treasurer for Activities Program Board, or APB, midway through the semester, just as this position is similarly. In order to combat that, since I was on executive board there in the middle of the semester, while only being 18 years old and the youngest person on the board, it was basically all about confidence and communication. You're never going to know what every person's personality will be, how it's going to affect them, whether it be a past senator becoming presidential candidate or myself, who doesn't have senator experience. But it's all about open communication, actually talking through the issues and concerns that people have in mind, rather than keeping it to all inside and talking behind people's back. That's not going to affect it. Like Abby was saying, it's about it's about working together as a team, working together as a family, and just getting by the obstacles as they come.
One thing I think can help me, if elected the president in that area, is that this is a group of people that I am familiar with. Now, I'm not familiar with them in the role of the president versus being a part of the body as a senator. but there are personalities that I am familiar with and such. I've had continuous experiences where I've had to deal with people, with strong-willed people with their own opinions and such. But I think one of the major factors of that, which always brings about the right way, is compromise. With me, pride really isn't an issue. It is always about getting the job done, and it really is a team effort. Now, I'm not going to say that all the time, you know, not all the time my choice or my view may be what's in the forefront, but that's something that I'm willing to do, like, for the greater good, as long as the group is moving in the right decision and decisions are being made in the correct way and such. Then I don't see a problem with anything. That's I don't believe that a leadership role is defined by telling people what to do, but more so by working with people, as the other candidates have said.
Anybody in the audience have a question?
Hi, good job on your speeches. They were great. So for all four of you, I'm just wondering why no one ran for president in this group or any executive positions.
At the time, I was more so focused on maintaining the MSA senator position and such, and I had my eyes more so set on also working more closely and doing things with the diversity committee. That was also my first semester being a senator, and I was still like kind of learning things and getting a feel for different type of things. Once the position did once the position did open up, it became more and more clear that the things that I wanted to do, if I had the presidency, I could do that on a greater scale, and that there was more that I could do with it. So I would say at that time, I wasn't ready for it, or my mind wasn't more so fixed on it, and I didn't see the broader view of things and what could possibly be done with the position.
Well, the reason why I didn't run last year for Student Senate President is, one, it was I didn't read the Constitution, that I didn't know that you didn't have to be a senator for a year. But in addition to that, last semester I was elected student trustee, but due to extenuating circumstances coming about early on the semester, I, unfortunately, with the discretion of advisors, administration, regarding internal personal matters, had to resign from the position. So that's why I didn't run for president.
The reason why I didn't run for an executive position is because last spring I wasn't at Shippensburg for a full residence year, so I legally just couldn't. I mean, I didn't think that I could. So that's pretty much why I didn't. I was a student senator at my old school, but coming in, when I asked about it, they said I had to be at school for a year, so that's pretty much it.
I considered it, and I had conversations with people about it, and I was told basically what I talked about in my speech was that, well, if you're student teaching, you probably shouldn't do it. And I think that my opinion and my will to do it was changed because I didn't delve deep enough into myself to see what I could handle. And I think that after the time of growth and contemplation and really attacking whether or not internally I could do it, and speaking with other people, you know, like how I said in my speech, I think that that time of growth and that time of self-reflection has prepared me now for this. And I also think that I needed that moment of growth to really ask myself what I can and cannot handle instead of asking other people what I can and cannot handle.
So, being as specific as possible, what does Senate do? What is the role of Senate?
In your opinion?
According to you, what is the role of Senate?
I better be able to answer this one. In my opinion, the role of Senate is to represent the student body and then represent that student body, their concerns, their feelings, what they're going through, what things need to be changed, and then Senate then talks to the ERC, and then the ERC represents those senators who represent the constituents, and then serve as the liaison between the administration and the people who make those types of decisions, and we have a conversation. So Senate serves as the conversation piece to them. The administration being like President Harpster and, you know, grounds and services and all that. We also serve the student groups here on campus, and we make financial decisions for them. They are provided with a budget, and then we look at the budget and see what we can and cannot offer to each group, as well as new allocations, and uphold basically ourselves as leaders.
Feeding off of what she said, we pretty much give the student body a voice, more or less, so they're not just feeling like they're just at school and all the administration is just making the decisions for them. So they're actually able to get their voice out there and, you know, get some things done that they want done through us, and pretty much serving as a bridge to the, you know, from the student body to us and then to the administration. And yeah, that's pretty much what Abby said. It's kind of a hard question.
For me, I think Senate does a lot, to say the very least. They represent the student body when it comes to academics, when it comes to clubs, when it comes to Greek life, when it comes to athletics. We go on and on for representation of the student body. I believe they're the voice, they're the backbone of the school in a sense, because they are a big aspect of making sure that the student's voice is heard, but also keeping in mind the logistics of what is good for the university and not just the students. In addition to that, I know Senate deals with all the budgets regarding all the organizations and clubs that go on the campus. They'll deal with all the constitution of the clubs, and basically a lot of people, I feel like, don't know what Student Senate is, which comes to a shock for me because I've been so involved on campus. And to basically summarize that all up is, I think Student Senate is a very broad but very specific group of people, in the sense that it basically covers every aspect of Shippensburg University in a group of 25-some people.
All right, I'm trying to word this, not using some of the words they used. I think the Student Senate is a collective of individuals who are elected by the student body to advocate for them. The Senate does serve as a liaison between the students and the administration, but more importantly, the Student Senate is a tool used to hear the voice of the student population. It also serves as an example of the democratic process and such, and it's one of the prime examples of leadership on our campus. But more so, I think the most important function of the Senate is to voice the opinions and the concerns of the student body and the complete student body as a whole.
All right, we're going to be taking a brief 10-minute break now, and then we'll be starting back up again at 8:30. If any of you would like, there's popcorn and pizza over there, and please stick around. We'll be having more questions after the break. We will now be reconvening the question period. If the candidates could please come forward to the stage.
from your speech, we included that you have in the spring, you actually have an extra 20 hours than you do now. However, with all your time that you're spending, or less, you'll have less time than anyway. My point being that now when you're doing all these busy activities, swimming, tutoring, tennis, your education society, other things that you listed, you're with shift students, you're engaged with other students, sometimes coaches or faculty or what may be. In the spring, you will be with people in Harrisburg. So even with you, if you have more time, less time, whatever it is, how will you feel Shippensburg? How will you hear what's going on and know what's happening, and really take it in while being in Harrisburg?
You represent the class of 2015, right? Okay. So you represent the class of 2015, and I think you do a good job. Nick Johnson, you right now represent MSA, and I think you do a good job. There are senators that represent athletics, and I think they do a good job. There are senators that represent the other classes, and I think they do a good job. So if you guys are all doing a great job at representing your constituents, and then you bring them to me, then I should have an absolutely adequate idea of the needs and wants of Shippensburg. Maybe I'm not here as much, but I spend all of my time at SHIP when I am here. And I will be in the Senate office, and I will be on campus, and I can be in groups, and I can listen to the conversations of people, and I'm available through email. And the changes that Shippensburg needs to go through and the changes that people are going to come up with, I don't think in 3 months I'm going to be bombed with extreme amount of needs of changes and stuff. There are a lot that need to happen, but I think that the past 3 semesters that I've been on Student Senate, I have an adequate idea of what goals and accomplishments we need to go through. And I think that's where, you know, a president doesn't tell people what to do, but a president has a conversation with people about what they're doing, and they delegate stuff. And I think that you guys are the best representation of your constituents. So if I'm trusting in you to represent them, then I think that if you're best representing them, then you should trust me to hear what you are saying as the voice of those constituents. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
So, Jacqueline, actually to everyone up there, you said that you wanted to be more, that you were very approachable. But a lot of people on campus find Student Senate and the Student Senate President in particular to be very unapproachable. How would you make yourself more approachable than we've had in the past?
Well, due to my past experience in the Activities Program Board and also being a staff manager at the Cub, I'm always around campus. I'm always talking to the people who come to the desk, not for just getting a key or getting information, but just seeing how they are doing, what they think about their involvement on campus so far. So I think already I'm more approachable. I've always been very involved in campus, very in tune with what's happening, or try to be as much as possible. Even though I live off campus, I spend more time here than I do at my actual house. I might as well pay rent here. So that's how I would be more approachable, since it's just in my nature from all that I do on campus already to hear people out, talk to them, see how they're doing, and just letting them know I'm here.
To begin with, to answer that question, I think one major way to be more approachable for students is to let them know that I'm here. I think a lot of times why the president seems so unapproachable, why sometimes the Senate seems unapproachable, because a lot of times a lot of students don't even know that we're there. And then when they do, we just seem like something that's kind of distant and kind of off, like something that's kind of out of reach. So by being more vocal, I feel like more so to students, and also just being, I'm usually just around. I've been involved in things pretty much since my third semester here, but I always make time to still, just to see how the average person is doing. I make the most random conversations with the most random people. I'm a pretty nice guy, you know, I smile a lot, so talk to me.
Yeah, basically, I feel the same way. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that you're ever gonna feel like, you know, you can't talk to me. I'm just Big Kai, as most people know, or Big K, whatever they call me. I'm just a guy that people like to talk to, and I feel like I can meet someone for the first time and have them immersed in a conversation like we've known each other for 20 years. But yeah, that's one of the main challenges with getting to know kids at SHIP is like, basically, if you just sit at home and don't get to know anyone, then you'll never know anyone, and they'll never feel like they can trust you or approach you. But I've done the complete opposite of that since I've been here. So I can't walk anywhere down the halls without kids trying to talk to me about something. So I feel that won't be an obstacle for me. So.
Okay. I'm not going to sit here and say that some of the decisions of Senate don't piss people off, because a lot of decisions do. But I think that the president then bears a lot of that weight of, well, the president must be deciding that because they're the head and the voice of Student Senate. When in fact, it's my understanding that a president only votes when there's a tiebreaker. And the president also does not sit in on budget and finance or SGAC. So with that being said, the people that we tend to piss off are obviously people who are in student groups that want budget and stuff. So I think that a lot of that weight that the president bears is just a lack of understanding. So I think by hearing what people have to say, like you bringing this to our attention, that there's a misconception about the president and not being approachable, I think that there needs to be efforts made by the president, not just to be, I'm a happy, wonderful person who loves Shippensburg and I'm approachable, but more of an effort to clarify that understanding, and that if there is an issue, it's always brought to the table and it's a collaborative majority ruling about stuff. So I think that the best way to let people know that you are approachable isn't just being a fun-loving Shippensburg student, it's really trying to clarify what Student Senate is trying to do, and what Student Senate only wants the best interest. And that may make some people upset with us, but the president, since it's the face, will bear that weight. So I hope that answers your question, but also I hope that you can share that with people. You know, all the people in this room, that even our senators, if we have that conversation, it would make us more approachable.
Hi, Troy.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. If you're not elected president, what will or what can you still do for the student body? And this is for all the candidates.
Do you guys care if I answer? Okay. I represent athletics currently, and also I am a huge advocate for social justice, as I put in my bio. I have that little line. But I do represent athletics and all the athletes, and there's over 500 of them. And I also do communicate a lot with many people on campus, not only through athletics, through Senate, but I work over at the foundation building where there's 46 callers over there at night that I get to talk to, and Mary Grace, that I get to talk to and have conversation with. So I don't only just represent athletics, but I know that last year Senate made a lot of progress at the library with the disability, the people who have handicaps. This is sounding bad. People who have physical disabilities, we helped fix the door, and that was a big effort. I don't represent students with disabilities as part of my, as athletics rep, but that's what I'd continue to do, is hear the cries of people or what I even see on campus. I would best do whatever I can to bring that to Senate while still representing over 500 other students.
I haven't given much thought into not being elected the president, but if I'm not, anything could happen. I do plan to get involved with Senate down the road. I mean, that's something that I wanted to do to begin with when I came here, but I just couldn't. So, I mean, this is my first opportunity, and I'm jumping right into it. But I do want to be involved in more groups. I mean, right now I'm in DECA, and that's an awesome thing for entrepreneurship and stuff like that. But for the most part, I just want to be, if not elected the president, I would like to be in a Senate seat.
If not elected, I'm still very involved in campus. I work at the Cub, and when I don't work, I still am here talking to people, seeing their opinions about everything. I go to a lot of the Senate meetings as a representative of APB, but even without that I go because I like to hear what's going on campus, and as the APB member, we urge the general members and other board members to go past their requirements, and if they have an issue, just to come, listen, speak upon their behalf. So if not elected, I'm still going to be a part of going to the meetings, going around campus, seeing how people think about school, academics, campus life, etc.
Even before, as I stated before, even before I was a senator, the work that I do with MSA, the Multicultural Student Affairs Office, it's work that I sought to do even before I gained the position that I'm in now. So even if I'm not elected the president, the mission is still the same. We're still going to work, and we still going to find better ways to bring all these different groups together and just make the campus community greater in general. Because that's just a responsibility. Quite frankly, that's a responsibility that we all have, whether or not you have a position or not, to before you leave here, leave a mark and make it better in some small way if you can. So if not, the work is still the same, just a different title.
If you're elected president, how do you plan to improve the relationship between student organizations and Senate?
As far as improving the relationship between student organizations and Senate, I think the first step that I would take is bringing this all together so that we're all on one page. I think a lot of times there's miscommunication, and actually, just like Abby pointed out, a lot of times because of certain decisions and such that are made, the Senate can be viewed as just like this overbearing group that's just lashing out and making all these decisions. I think I think the communication between us all is very low, and I think that's the very first step to take towards bringing all that together and just seeing what we can do to help the organizations reach their goals, and how we can just all come together to make that, and how we can also reach our own goals and everything.
Like I've said for a previous question, I think it's all about the communication, but beyond that, it's about the confidence in the position. As president, as any senator, as any student, you need to be confident of what you preach to everyone. You need to be confident that you're making the right decision, and even though it may not benefit everyone, you just have to know that it benefits the majority, for whether it be Shippensburg as a whole, or student body, or faculty, that organizations may be mad in a sense that their funding may be cut, but that's because other issues such as retention. So we need to focus on retention in order to get those finances back. So it all depends about education about the matters that are at hand, explaining it, communicating it, and being confident of what you're saying and being honest about it.
As far as the relationships between the student organizations and the Senate being improved, I feel as though simply, like everyone else said, communication is key, and it's contagious. Once people start interacting and communicating and hearing each other's views, things tend to get done a lot more, speedy or rapidly as a whole. So I feel as though simply just sitting down and each side hearing each other's views on what they want to get done, and the student senate then firing back off what they can get done at a particular time, whether or not that pleases the student organizations or not. It's just something that we all need to do, and like it starts with communication. So.
Sorry, I take a lot of time to think about stuff. Like I said before, there are decisions that make people upset. There are people that are upset with certain things that are taking place, and I think that can sometimes be difficult to understand because a lot of the stuff that Senate does and the conversations they have sometimes take place behind closed doors, and that's stuff we can't talk about. And as leaders, I think that we need to put our hand out first to start that communication, because often people are aware of the same situation taking place and have completely different interpretations about it and why it took place and how it took place. So I think that it needs to come, I think a hand needs to be put out by Student Senate to try to mend those relationships, because I'm assuming that there are presidents of certain organizations that are leaders as well, and that conversation needs to take place. I think it is about communication, and I do think it's about understanding, but I also think it's about effort and initiative. And I also don't think that attacks are worth it, because getting a bunch of people riled up about something isn't going to change anything. It's going to shut both groups down. So I think that dealing with someone one-on-one in a respectful way, that you can represent your group and they can represent their group, meaning Senate, so someone representing Senate, and having that conversation so that you can go back and say exactly what needed to be said, because I'm assuming that whoever, whatever you're speaking about, or, whoever you're thinking about in your head has a sour relationship with Student Senate. I'm sure that their leadership and their president is as much of a leader as we are sitting here, and two leaders should be able to sit down and have a conversation.
Why do each of you want to be president? Why do each of you want to be president?
I want to be the president because I want to be involved with it on this campus at the greatest scale at which I can. And I sat down and I thought about it pretty extensively, and I thought that being the president was the best way to do that. And that's the job that I thought fit me. So I feel as though I can be someone that the students feel like, we can rally behind Kyan. He could be the guy that he's a good face for our university. That's what I wanted to be. That's what I always wanted to be since I've gone here. So that's why I want to be the president. And I want to serve as the voice to our students, and be a great representation for them.
I want to be Student Senate President because unfortunately I had to resign as student trustee, which was very important to me, but due to circumstances arising in confidence with the administration and myself and advisors, I had to resign. I love Shippensburg. I know that's not enough to just be president, but I know I'm a leader. I've been very involved with the campus. I've been in 2 executive board positions since I've gotten here, and I've only been here for 2 years. I have a passion for Shippensburg and where it goes, what policies are made, what acts are approved of, funding, etc. I've always had a portion of my life in Senate because of Activities Program Board, and it always interested me. And because that opportunity has arisen now and the circumstances have dwindled down, I talked to the administration and they even urged me to pursue this.
I want to be president of the Student Senate because something I was saying before is that I've started my college career here at Shippensburg University, and I've gotten to see a lot of sides of it. As much as I love this school, there are a lot of issues that I've seen here, and there are a lot of us, even in different parts of the campus, who see the same problems, and there's a lot of frustration as far as what's being done with them. There are things that I'm very passionate about, as well as others have voiced, and I know I have a different approach and a different approach to a lot of the issues and such. It's a job that needs to be done. There's things that need to be done, and I think it's time that we take a new approach to it.
I want to be student senate president because I want to work on a greater scale with all of Shippensburg University. Right now, I represent athletics, but I am not just an athlete. I am much more than just an athlete. I am much more than just a student in the College of Arts and Sciences. I am more than just, a president in one group or a vice president in another. And I talk to people who are more than just the way that, we define them. And personally, to me, and I mean this, I don't see black or white or Christian, Muslim, atheist, Buddhist. I don't see College of Arts and Sciences versus the College of Human Services and Education. And I don't see the athletes over here and, other people over there. And I love Shippensburg as a whole. And I think that I could do more by representing Shippensburg as a whole. And I'd like to make changes here, and I'd like to at least start those changes, because a lot of changes don't happen in just a couple of months. But I think that because I see people as people, instead of the ways that we break down and define them, that the presidential position is a good one for me, because I'll be able to see everything and what everybody, regardless of how society defines you or Shippensburg defines you or your transcripts define you, or I think that I will just be able to see people as people and do what the people want.
As Olivia asked you guys earlier, why didn't you run for Student Senate President last spring? Abby and Nick, who have Senate experience, expressed that they were not quite ready for Student Senate President, and so I'm addressing this to our candidates who are new to Student Senate. If experienced student senators were not ready to take on the presidency, what makes you think that you are?
Not only because, I'm a strong leader and a great person to stand behind who's always going to have your back. I was in Student Senate at my previous school, Wesley College in Dover, Delaware. And, I took a break. I had to, due to the rules in the Constitution, I just couldn't run for Student Senate. So I'm ready to get back into it, and why not get back into it in the biggest way and be the president? So that's pretty much what I did.
Every person is different. I was ready, but for different positions in Senate that didn't fall through, unfortunately. Just because they're senators, I don't believe that makes us any more not efficient for the job, up to par. We both have leadership qualities. All of us have leadership qualities somewhere on campus. We're all really involved, really passionate about the position, and all want to make change for the better, as well as make sure that Student Senate has a very confident and very efficient leadership to uphold due to the circumstances. It's going to be a very rocky road, and for all of us to even be up here to come in the middle of the semester, you can't be anything but ready. It's all about not having doubts, not having regret in the decision, and whoever does become elected, I'm sure even in the past, they might not have seemed or suggested to themselves that they're ready, but obviously things change, experiences change, and with giving it more thought and effort, all of our candidates believe that we're ready for it now.
So when I asked why, you didn't run earlier, you said that you were pretty confident, but then after talking to many people, you kind of let that break you down, so you decided that the best choice at that time wasn't here. So my question is, when you're here to represent the students, and all the senators and their constituents agree on something, but the administration is in disagreement with you, and they're knocking you down and telling you that that's not how it should be done, how are you going to stand by what your senators and your constituents are saying when it's someone that is on a higher level?
I like your question. I know that I have made a tremendous amount of maturation and growth through Senate. There are things when I first got into this position that I wouldn't say or didn't feel, and I think anybody that's sat in on any of our meetings knows that I usually have a lot to say. And sometimes the things that I say don't make people happy, but then I like when other people say things and I can see things from a different perspective. So I think that the growth that I've had and that period of time where I've had to reflect on myself has given me the strength to do that. I also think that there's a respectful way to do that. Are there moments where any of us can be broken down? Yes, but I know now that I am able to say what I need to say in a respectful way, and maybe the administration doesn't agree with what we're doing, but I don't see me as just me. There are other senators, so when you say that the entire Senate wants something and then I'm the liaison to the administration, I'm not alone. So I'm not alone, so I wouldn't be going there and the administration couldn't break me down because we're a team. And as long as we're a team, then I can't be broken down because I have the rest of the Senate to help me and support me as I hope to support you all.
Jackie, you mentioned several times your appointment and subsequent resignation as a student trustee. That's a very important position on Senate and beyond Senate for Shippensburg. And that is your resignation so early in the semester is concerning for me, as well as some other people that I've talked to. So I understand that things are personal, and I don't want you to go into personal details, but how can you assure us now that whatever happened 4 weeks ago is beyond you and you're ready to take on the position of president for the entire year?
I can assure you, because the matters that were at hand were internal matters between the administration and stuff that was going on. Before even applying to be president, I made sure that it was 100% that I was able to do this position and nothing could stop me. Not one little aspect, little detail could force me to resign. And before I even handed in that petition, I wanted to be 100% sure, because that would not be fair. And it is a very, very valid concern, and I completely agree with you that I would be concerned too, like if someone else resigned and then they just try to get back in. But that's why I made the means to make sure I'm able to uphold this position to the entirety of it is, to every requirement, every hour, the whole entire year, even to the next year possibly, so that I'm in that seat every Senate meeting, every caucus meeting, every event, etc.
This question is also for you, Jacqueline. As you say, you are an executive board member of APB. You also work in the club. As president, you need to stay non-biased because you don't have a vote until there's a tie. and there's certain issues that the Senate must decide, certain issues that your organizations may not appreciate. Are you willing, and do you believe that you can stay non-biased while still holding the positions that you have?
I definitely think so, because there have been multiple occasions where my opinion differs from the rest of the activities program board, since I'm not one to just give in for the sake of the organization, but for the sake of, I like to have multiple perspectives. And I understand that sometimes Senate can't do what we want, and we just have to deal with it, such as, I know a big thing APB worries about is funding, but we have a budget for a reason, and I completely understand that. I absolutely know that I could become unbiased. I have already had disagreements with APB, as I just stated, same with the Cub, but it's all about communications. With my involvement with them, they know the type of person I am, that they won't get mad or angered because I state something that is against their group. But as long as I communicate to them as to why we chose that decision or why certain circumstances had to happen, I don't see an issue.
This is a question to everyone. Abby, you represent athletics, and Nick, you represent MSA, APB, and so on. And there's around about 7,000 undergraduate students here. What I'm asking is, does it concern you that there's so few students here, excluding leadership and Senate members? Like, does that concern you that there's not that much participation coming from the actual student body itself?
It does, and I believe that for whoever gets the position, that's actually one of the main challenges they're going to have to face. That's something that we as the Senate have to work on, like overall period, even now, president aside. Some of it comes from because a lot of the student population don't know about these type of things. They don't know about us, and they don't know what we do. And so when they see the emails, sometimes they just see it as something coming from administration. That's something that the Senate has to do more of, just reaching out to them and getting more involved with the student population versus just kind of regulating the student population. But that's an issue for whoever gets the job, and just the Senate in general has to deal with. And either way, it is something that's going to get dealt with soon.
I would love to blame it on fall break just around the corner, but in the experiences I had with other events not having retention, yes, it is an issue. It's an issue for a lot of organizations for their events, and something so important as this, where the student body has the main voice of who is elected. Luckily, there was efforts to make this on camera so people could reach out through social media and that avenue to, if they would like to hear our responses there. But that is definitely one of the initiatives that for any organization, they need to have retention for students to come to the events, rather than, hey, I have a day off, I'm off school, I don't want to be on campus. It's going to be hard because that's a lot of people's mindsets. They want to exclude themselves from the campus if they're not in school, but I think it also deals with the education factor that they are paying an activities fee, they are paying fees and everything else to maintain this campus, so why not get your money's worth?
And to answer your question, a lot of students aren't coming because they don't feel as though that their voice or their opinion matters. And I think that is something that we could work on by establishing a better relationship with the student body, and giving them a chance to meet their senators, like having a meet and greet with the senators. Come meet your senators, come meet your president. Stuff like that is what's gonna, pique the interest of students, because they are kind of wasting their money if they're not being involved fully in college. If they're just taking classes and getting grades for them and then getting a degree and going home, I feel as though they've wasted a portion of their collegiate career. So holding events where they can have a chance to meet the student senators and hear what they have to say, and stuff like that is big. And I think that that's something that whoever out of the four of us become president, and including the student senate, should definitely work on.
This is my third speech going for a student senate position. So like I said before, a lot of the changes that need to be made aren't overnight changes. But I don't know if you've been to any of the other speeches that we have had, or if this is your first one, or what your catalyst was for coming here this evening. We're appreciative that you showed up, but the people who are here is much more than we've had in those past. So I think that that's a process that's changing. If we took attendance at every Senate speech that we have, and this is kind of a random one too, we don't normally have one mid-October. So, I guess it is alarming, but it's also kind of like, wow, we're making progress. This is something that's happening, and it's not just senators sitting here. We have representation of more than just that, and even our student groups are here. I'm sure you're part of student groups, or you're here tonight representing a student group. I know that the people from the media are here. Like, to me, that's a big step from where we've been. And I think that as long as we keep moving in that direction, if you come to more speeches and you tell people that you went to speeches, that's just going to continue our growth. So yes, there needs to be more publicity and more connection to the student body to bring them here, to make them care about this. But already we've made more people care. So I think I'm kind of like, yeah, it's not so great that there's not a lot of people here, when you're right, there's 7,000 people on campus and we get a small handful. But then again, this is a big jump that we've made, and I'm proud of that, as long as there's progress being made. And I hope in the next couple years, when someone 4 years from now, or an incoming freshman, decides to take on the role of president, that person will have more support of the student body, because every year we're changing and growing and learning. And that's something that Senate needs to continue to work on, is learning, growing, and hearing, listening.
From Amanda BK. At your old college at Wesley, you said you were a student senator.
Yeah.
What was that student senate like, and what position did you hold on that?
My freshman year, I was a representative for the class of 2015, which is my class. And it was a lot different than what this is. I mean, I can imagine, because Wesley College only has about 1,800 students, so I was able to, it was more on a small scale than it is here. So I could walk right up to the dean of students or the president, like anytime, you just see him walking around and stuff like that. So it was a little bit different as far as like size goes, but nevertheless, it was a student senate, and it was us being a connection to the student body. So I mean, I feel like all good student senates should be the same. So that's it.
Mine's a simple question. It's Jacqueline Payne. Do you know who your current class senators are and your college senators are?
I know I don't know all of them.
No. I'm asking, do you know your class senator in your college senator? Do you know them?
I do not, because when I first came here, I was considered class of 2015, but since I'm going to graduate in 2016, I didn't really have time to update that information, so I don't.
My class keeps changing because I keep picking up majors, but for my college, I know the face and I know the person's face, but I can't pinpoint the name, to be completely honest.
So, Abby and Nick, can you now tell us who your class senators are and who your college representative is?
Yeah.
Wait, I think Nick and I are the same class, so maybe we should go hands.
Pick one.
So to about this question, I'm going to answer it. I cannot say who my class senator is, but I cannot say who my class senator is. But my class in general has no type of unification as far as we go with decisions and such. I do know my college senators. I cannot say their name, but I do know who they are.
Ryan Spangler, Nick McClure, and Colin Crawford is Education and Human Services. Except I'm not Education and Human Services. I'm Arts and Sciences, so give me a second. I got this. And it's not you, Justin Schneider, College of Business. So everybody that I do know, oh gosh, let me run. It's the face.
Can we get a roster?
Who was here?
Just the one that's always playing Magic. Okay,
It's a guy.
kids now? Can we get a roster? All right, Abby.
It's your ex-boyfriend. Yep, that's on tape, by the way.
Okay, one more question, and then we're going to have another 10-minute break to switch out the videotapes. Yep. You were first.
Nick, I have a question for you. So, wow, I was planning on asking this and then the last answer just to help rally this one. So, I mean, obviously, any of you that would get elected, you're going to be working very closely with myself as well as the rest of the senators. I'm the vice president, who is the gentleman. So, that wasn't sexy, sorry. So I guess my question for you is, we've been on Senate together for quite a while, and I'm not sure we've actually ever had a conversation besides a quick, how are you involved? And that partially may be my fault, but I'm just wondering, with you saying that you're going to be stepping out and that you have these conversations, what are you going to do for just your Senate? Because you need to know your Senate as a whole too.
My approach to that would be the same way I would go about getting to know more about the general population at the university. I don't have the best personal relationship with everyone on the Senate, but their concerns and such, anything that we discussed in meetings and everything and along those lines, those are things that I've always taken note of. By filling in the role, it would be my obligation and such to build those relationships further with the other senators and other ones who I haven't, for the senators who I haven't built those relationships with. It would be my obligation and role to do so, but I think the Senate in general kind of we need to do a better job of communicating with each other, getting to know each other more so on a personal level. I think a lot of times it's cliquish, and I think that's something that we need to work on kind of depleting and such. And that's something that I would be willing to do if given the role.
What if not given the role?
If not given the role, that's something that I still would be working on. That's something I have been working on more this year versus last year and such. As a senator, I've gotten to know, I'm more familiar with a lot more of the senators now than I have been before. And that's something that I've been working on and such. And I think that the entire Senate has been working on.
That's just Nick.
I do have a question. This is for Kaim. You've claimed that you're ready to be president of the Shippensburg Senate, even though you attended a different university for 2 years, not that that disqualifies you. You've also said that you could not run for position last year, even though that's incorrect. Unfortunately, you could have, according to the rules that are posted online. And again, so then also the duties of the president are posted online for public consumption. One of those duties is to appoint senators to fill positions on administrative Hill committees. Can you tell me what Hill committees are, or have you inquired about that regarding that duty or any of the other duties listed for the president?
I've briefly looked at the Hill committees. I mean, the committees you're talking about. I mean, what are you specifically
Can
asking?
you tell me what a Hill committee is?
It's a committee that speaks on a different type. I mean, a particular organization. I thought it was. I'm not sure.
Can you give me an example?
Not off the top of my head, I really can't. Because I mean, I briefly looked at them like the other night when I was on the student website, the SHIP website, but I can't off the top of my head. I'm not gonna say I can. So I'd rather not give you one
Yeah,
that'd be
thank you
wrong.
for your honesty.
Yeah. But it's something I'll look into though.
All right, one more question by Troy, and then we'll be calling a 5-minute break to change out the tapes.
All right, this is a really important question here. I need to get to the heart of this. What's your favorite number? Well, we need to lighten the mood here.
And why, or just?
No, just what's your favorite number?
You can say why too, if you really feel the need to explain your
Let's get
favorite
intense
numerical
here.
value.
Yeah. I just want to lighten the
I'm
mood.
gonna go first. Mine is 32 because that's the football number I've always had, and my uncle had it too when he played for the Eagles. So, my uncle's running Ricky Waters. Yeah, but yeah, that's why.
My favorite number is the number 3. And the reason why that's my favorite number is because usually at home swim meets, lane 3 is the fastest lane, and then the other team gets lane 4. And usually I don't really like odd numbers because they throw me off a little bit, unless it's 5. Then that doesn't throw me off too much. However, my favorite time of day is 1:23 because I like the order and logic of that. So, yep, I've thought about these questions, Troy, so I was ready for you.
My favorite number is 8. I really like symmetry and I like even numbers. I have no exceptions to that. All my favorite numbers are 8. And also when it's sideways, I really like symmetry and I like even numbers. So it could be all. I have no exceptions to that. All my favorite numbers are 8. And also when it's sideways,
Mine's
it's
is
an
7
infinity
because
symbol. So it could
7
be all.
actually equals completion, like throughout like various religions and everything. 7 founders, I feel like founded my. Mine's is 7 because 7 actually equals complete.
All right, thanks.
And we'll now have a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene at 9:25.
Cool. Hi guys. So I'm a very difficult person to work with. Like, I'm not gonna lie. No, I'm being honest. Like, I know that's not the right way I should come off and say it, but I'm going to. Like, I'm very opinionated, and I'm not the only one that is very opinionated, especially on Senate as a whole. But you have 2 duties that you'll have to take care of if you're elected president. You have the ERC, and then you have the full Senate. So my question is, how are you going to manage a very specific situation when Becca, Kevin, and I are all sitting there, and none of us agree with each other, and you can't be biased, and you have to help us work through the situation and come to a conclusion? And if you could, be a little more specific than saying, like, oh, well, I'll make sure you guys communicate. If you don't raise your voices, that would be awesome.
So I'd like to see it.
For a situation like that, I'm actually trained in peer mediation. I have got my certification in 2012. So as far as kind of getting people to, I don't want to lead on communication, but to communicate and kind of calm down and find common ground, I'm actually certified in that. I was actually trained in that for like 3 years. Plus, I grew up in a very rowdy household. I dealt with people's passions pretty much all my life. My father, he's an old Jamaican man, very opinionated. He wanted me to, we don't agree on everything, but we still managed to come together on Thanksgiving and relax. So with those 2 things combined, that's not something that worries me as much.
I think by first making each side of people kind of voice their opinions to the others, and then you as the liaison between the 3 groups take bits and pieces from each person's point of view and allow the other group of people to kind of like hear that too. allow them, kind of make them the liaison too, like not literally but metaphorically. Try your best to like simply just calm down the situation. If you guys are just scratching and clawing and the conversation's not going anywhere, as the president, I feel like it's your duty to just, guys, relax, and then have everybody actually state their opinion in a civilized way so you can move forward.
Well, first, we would have our meetings over food because food makes everybody happy, and most conflicts are ended over dinner. So dinner would be a first. But on a serious note, I think that I do a very good job seeing things from a different perspective. And I like when people bring that perspective to me and say, hey, you need to see this a little bit differently. So I think playing a little bit of that devil's advocate sometimes helps people see things more as a whole picture than just through their own experience and their own feelings. And you guys are all bound by what's in the Constitution. There's a specific role that you need to follow, Olivia, and there's a specific role that you need to follow, Kevin. And Becca, there's a specific role that you need to follow too, and all of that's very outlined, and sometimes it's hard to sway from those very strict boundaries. But I think that the biggest point is when you are having a conflict with someone, the first thing it comes down to is respect. And if somebody in the group doesn't feel respected, then that's where everything goes haywire. Because maybe you don't get your way, but there's a difference between not getting your way and then just feeling like you're excluded or disrespected. So I think that making sure that everybody feels respected and that there's a tone of acceptance and listening and hearing and understanding will first help that there not be an explosion of conflict, but then also respecting each person's opinion and their strong feelings, and then taking bits and pieces of that to craft something that is ERC-esque, not just Olivia-esque or Kevin-esque or Becca-esque or President-esque, but like making it so that it is a piece of ERC and everybody's represented in that decision in some fashion.
For me, I love having multiple perspectives. I'll probably handle it the same way I handle any of my relations, where if there's a disagreement, there's one of two ways you could handle it. You could either keep bashing at each other, or you could simply shut up, so to speak, take it all in, see the other people's perspective, and then see what's best for not just yourselves and based on your opinions, but for the student body. And then the other way is to reconvene later on, where you could actually have time to think about the other perspectives, like even if it's a day, whether it be an hour, whatever it be, so that an educated and thoughtful process can be made rather than, hey, this sounds good, or you've been on the Senate more than me, so let's just go with your opinion. You've handled this more. I think sometimes the better way to deal with stuff is just to really think about it, really think about the rules, really think about the student body. Who does it affect, and how does it affect, and how do we want it to be effective?
Which do you think works best, positive or negative feedback?
Negative. I mean, of course, everyone likes to hear, that they're doing a good job. But if you're doing a good job, and you're hearing that, you're likely not to really change anything that you're doing. It's usually when you're giving some negative feedback that you are getting to find different approaches to different situations and such.
I think neither one is better. It all depends on the person's personality, the situation at hand, and whether it needs negative or positive feedback. There are some instances, Senate is very under-recognized, underappreciated, and I even know that. So sometimes you need to give positive feedback to them, showing them how they matter and how they contribute to school. In other aspects, you need to let them know when they mess up. You need to know ways to do the job better. But that also goes back on whoever is guiding them, whether it be the president, whether it be your ERC, to help them go towards that point of improvement. So with the feedback, you must have that advisement. You can't just give it to them and hope they learn from it.
I also would say both, because no one in this world is perfect. So I mean, it takes a certain amount of negative feedback to find out what you're doing wrong in life, so you can say, you step back and say, all right, I guess I can modify this and that and this and that. Whereas if you're getting positive feedback constantly, you don't know what to improve on, because you're constantly getting told that you're correct and everything is perfect. But at the same time, positive feedback is awesome too, because, you know, people, I hate to say it, even the people who say, no, I don't need anyone's approval, we all are longing for that approval, and we all want to do good in life. So when people say positive things, you know, that helps out a lot too, and that helps people progress and get better at things too.
I don't really like the connotations of positive and negative feedback, but I'm a sandwich person, and I think that negative feedback, yep, I'm going to tell you what I mean by sandwich person, that you receive negative feedback in a sandwich of what you've done well. So maybe you didn't carry something out all the way, or you missed a part of something, but your effort was there, and that needed to be recognized, and then something needs to be changed, and then we recognize that somebody else did something that, you know, you have to recognize another positive thing that took place. I like the word constructive criticism, and that works well with me, because I believe that people need to be told when things can be made better. Not that they did something bad, but that their progress can be made better, and that their effort can be made better, or something has room for improvement. So I think that there needs to be, because if somebody always receives positive feedback or positive everything, then they think that they're doing everything right. But if you give someone always negative feedback, then they're just going to give up, or they're going to stop doing what they're doing because they don't feel like what the good things that they're doing are going unnoticed. So I think that if we're going to use the words positive and negative feedback, they need to be sandwiched. But I would prefer to be an advocate for constructive criticism.
All right, I have one more question. Actually, my question is a three-parter, and I apologize, this is going to be long, so follow me here. I'm not going to try and quiz you on the duties of the president, because we'll be up here all night. There is, as we mentioned in the Constitution, a 21 numbered list of all of the duties involved in being the president. However, I'm just going to highlight a few here, and it culminates in 3 questions. As the president, you lead all of the Senate meetings. Some of you have been there, some of you haven't. And in this, you follow Robert's Rules of Orders, and you have to know and call upon every single one of the senators by name in this specific format. That's just a very basic capability that has to be addressed. It's the thing you do every other week. However, another part of this duty is that you go to administrative committees and administrative buildings and meet with all of these different people, and in doing that, while you are not politicians, you must be political. You have to watch the way in which things are said, and some of the information you're given, you flat out can't share. And what we've said about how secrecy harms us, there are certain things that have to be secret. So how are you going to handle that, and how are you going to be political? And then the final one is that these duties, this 21 bulleted list, well, maybe, I think 2 of them have been fully completed at this point, and other ones, the rest of them are completely ongoing. How are you going to handle these duties? I don't know personally of any other club, which this is a club, we have a constitution, we have our own little SGAC form. I don't know of any other club that has a presidency with 21 bullets underneath it, and every single one of those can be freely interpreted. There is no direction to it. You have a filing cabinet in your office filled with papers back to the 80s from what I've seen, and you have a few digital folders that go back maybe a decade or 2 with no real rhyme, reason, or organization. While we're working on this, the fact is, how are you going to handle these duties, and moving forward, keep it so that Senate continues that advance, continues handling it, and this progress isn't lost with each year, because what we're facing now is that the last 5-10 years, there's been a slow decline. It's a continual thing, and this is the point at which we need to reverse it. So I'm going to summarize that whole paragraph, and the 3 main questions here. How are you going to know all of the senators by last name and by first name, because you'll call them by first name when you're talking to them personally, and last name in every single one of the meetings, and it does make a difference. How are you going to handle all of these duties? And it is a lot. It only requires 5 hours on paper, but it's more like 20 plus, and this is volunteer. You're not getting paid. We are the only school in the PASI system that does not pay the ERC. Fun fact. And how are you going to be political without being a politician? I'd like to start.
If I don't go first, I'm going to forget the questions.
I will repeat them for each one of you if you'd like. I wrote them down on display.
Okay, number 1, how am I going to do the things on the 21 bulleted list? How am I going to know all the senators' names? Got it. Well, I've already started that growing process tonight. Edward Phillips is my College of Arts and Sciences. So thank you. It's always a learning process. I know the senators. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the retreat this year, but I know a lot of the senators. We've talked. I've chatted with them. There's more that I could get involved with and have conversations with them as well. And I intend to do that regardless of if I get this position or not, because I love Senate. So also, it's a good thing they have those name plaques during the open meeting, so I will learn that way as well.
Forewarning, you can't see those from where you sit.
Okay, so I will do a lot of memorization Thursday evening if I get this position. I will study. Second question, 21 bulleted list. I have read it several times. While I cannot recite all 21 to you, please don't ask me to do so. Obviously, I needed to have a conversation piece when I was questioning internally myself, as well as when I went to the coaches and I went to Dr. Sir, and so obviously I was pretty aware of what was going to be on that, what my duties were going to be, and that's why I was questioning if I could handle it. So I plan on doing whatever I can to fulfill all of those tasks. I also do know of there's a swim coach in Florida who takes every weekend off. He's the head coach of a swim team, and he says that every weekend he takes off and he lets the assistant coach the team. And he said that that has made a world of a difference in the dynamic between the team, the assistant coach, and the head coach, because it empowers the assistant coach. And I think that there's a lot of responsibility on the president, but I also think that delegating tasks sometimes isn't a way to get rid of those tasks from you having them personally, but making other people on Senate feel empowered, feel like that they have other duties that they can do and they can help out and be a big role like that. So I obviously want to do everything on that list, and I'll fulfill it to the best of my capabilities and do everything that's on that list. But also I think that a lot of things, can be delegated too, to empower other people instead of just making it, those are your roles and you can only do those. Third question, please.
How are you going to be political without being a politician? And know that to me, politicians are different.
Okay. Can you give me a definition of politician? Can you use it in a sentence?
Are U.S. senators and politicians and their current governmental format, which is such that we make on our TV jokes about their corruptness. So being political in how you say things and the actions you take so that it doesn't come all from, because everything is completely open to interpretation, being very thorough in it versus...
First and foremost, I'm be honest, I'm true to myself. And I know where I stand on certain things, and in some circumstances I will have to represent those who, if the majority is different than what I believe, I do have to represent my majority. but I think that I will not fall victim to corruption, and I'm strong-willed, I have a voice, and I think that I would be very capable of handling a conversation with someone in a respectful manner and be able to hold my own. But I also think that I am able to see and will be able to see when presented to me the other interpretations of things. Because like I said before, everybody can see the exact same thing happen and there be 5 different interpretations of it. So I think that I need to be true to myself, but not stubborn or blind to other people's feelings and thoughts, but still be true to myself in the most respectful way that I can be. Does that make sense? Okay.
Would you like me to restate the first question?
I can go with the first one. As far as learning the names is concerned of the senators, I mean, I already know 2, Abigail Brumbach and Nicholas Johnson, so that's a decent start. And I mean, as far as actually getting to know the other ones, I'm just going to do it simply by studying them and like just putting a name to a face, and furthermore getting to know them, so eventually it's just like we've known each other our whole lives. So that's how I plan to do that, is by simply studying them and getting to know my senators. But can I have part B of the question?
How are you going to handle all of the duties of president, including the section where you're working with the Senate and you're working with administration?
I've always lived by the creed that Rome wasn't built in a day. I mean, if you guys ever have heard that quote. It's more of a, to put it in layman's terms, I want to progressively handle all the things, so myself and the Senate are not overwhelmed by just trying to do everything at once, but at the same time still being persistent and, you know, making it very clear that the tasks that we have to do are important. So
Could you give me a direct example of how you do that though?
how I would be persistent? By just having my senators stay up on the things that they are to be doing. I think it starts with them though, to be honest, and then it feeds up into me. But I can't really give like a direct example until I like see one. And then the part C of the question.
How are you going to be political without being a politician? Because we're not, we're college students.
Basically by being stern in my viewpoints, but at the same time not allowing my viewpoints to strong arm someone else into feeling how I feel, because I'm gonna always speak my mind until, you know, HE double hockey sticks freezes over. But as far as that's concerned, the best way to do that is by simply stating your opinion and leaving it at that, and then listening to others' opinions without hurting them by beating it down or by telling someone else this and so said that this is their opinion. You know, by keeping it really on business terms, like on political terms. So that's that.
So for the first question of the senators' names, I'm a very visual person, so once I see their face, I could know their name. An example of this is I memorized 30 new employees at the Cub the day before the all-employee meeting, and to know what crew they're on. And yet I still know them, so I don't have an issue with figuring out the names with just a little practice. For the second questions of the 21 duties, I believe it's all about organization and planning out way ahead of time. For example, I know one of the duties is to meet with Roger Sir weekly, so those meetings will be planned ahead of time for hopefully the whole semester, unless circumstances arises where it has to be changed. And then for Jody Harpster, it's every month, I believe, so those can be planned ahead of time. For the other duties that are more ongoing and like you have to do them as they come, I am a firm believer of to-do lists, and I love crossing off when I successfully completed something, so that would be great. And I bring my calendar and my planner everywhere to get stuff done. I just got a new backpack because it wasn't big enough, so that will happen. And then for the third one, to not be a politician while also being political. I think it's all about respect and the way you word things. So in order to do so politically rather than in a politician way, you need to think before you speak. You need to think about who it is affecting, as I stated before, how is it affecting them, and why. In order to do that effectively, you need to not think about how can I just meet my own desires and my own needs to be corrupt, since that's what a politician is, of course. So I think it's more with respect and actually using the skills of communication wisely, whether it be writing your thoughts down before you speak it, see how it sounds in your head, coming back to it, see how it still sounds. Because some cases it's better to state your opinion 5 minutes later than just having a knee-jerk reaction.
Thank you. As far as learning everyone's name, I actually am a very hands-on type of learner. So something that I would do, or something that I will do either way, is actually meeting and sitting down with every center and actually having a conversation with them that involves things outside the Senate. That helps me learn that type of things. By shaking someone's hand and having a conversation, that embeds them in my mind a bit stronger. The second question was, how would I handle the responsibilities and such? Pretty much by being persistent in my communication with others, as you offered. You have special notes and such and different things that were instilled that you would relay over to whoever takes that. That's something I would take very much huge advantage of, as well as Dr. Sir and everyone else surrounding. I'll be very agitating to everyone around me as far as who was around that seat to help me get on board, to help me get up to date with everything that we need to be up to date with. That's something that I can very much promise. And as far as for that third question, unfortunately, I come from a more hostile environment, so I've been playing politics without being political my entire life. Even before I joined the Senate and such, me being here was a game of politics. So I'm a firm believer in staying true to myself, but fortunately and unfortunately, I'm not a stranger to Game of Thrones, so to speak.